What's going on, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Jake and Joe Bengals preview show presented by First Star Logistics. I'm Jake Liscow. He is Joe Goodberry, and we're bringing you Bengals content in the middle of the week after games every week here on the First Star Logistics YouTube channel. They are a fantastic partner in this endeavor, giving Joe and I a platform to talk to you all about what's going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. And First Star Logistics is a great partner for us. Maybe they could be a great partner for you. If you're looking for work in the Cincinnati area, make sure you check out all the job postings over at firststarlogistics.com, one of the fastest growing companies in the Cincinnati area. And if you're missing out on any of our shows throughout the season, well, one, you're missing outstanding content. The preview show with Joe and I, we get long-winded. We're talking about the biggest stories going on with the Cincinnati Bengals every week. Of course, we're away during the bye week, so welcome back. We're with you for the rest of the season here. And every week, First Star Logistics is giving away awesome stuff in the post-game show. This week, we've got Apple Watches, which I think is a pretty sweet thing to give away. Every week, I'm pretty blown away with the giveaways, and I think this week remains no exception. We got that Bengals banded Apple Watch for you this week. Make sure you're following at First Star Log on Twitter for all the giveaway details on X on Twitter, and we'll also have one to give away live in the post-game show. And Joe, this week we talk about the return of Joe Burrow. Certainly the biggest story of the week in terms of big picture, in terms of star power, perhaps not the most important story for the Bengals' chances to hold on to their slim playoff hopes. We will get to the playoff picture. The Bengals also made a move to add Antoine Powell-Ryland, who's a guy that the draft sheet was high on.
That's the big news of the week, actually.
It could have been the big news of the week, but then it was announced that Trey Hendrickson's doubtful, and that might be actually the most important piece of news that we have this week from the Bengals. Joe Flacco not throwing on Wednesday again, as he's going to be managing that shoulder issue, but Joe Burrow did, and Zach Taylor thought he looked sharp. So I guess we take that as encouragement. It sounds like Burrow's rehab is going beyond the wildest hopes and dreams that you could have had for Joe Burrow. Of course, we finish up with the matchups and the Steelers being the opponent this week. We'll talk about what might be different in this matchup, the second Steelers game of the season, the one on the road, the one in Acrisure, and that is where we'll go later. But we start, Joe, with the return of Joe Burrow, who's back in practice, which means his 21-day window to be activated from the injured reserve has begun. It does not necessarily mean he will be playing football again as soon as that window is up. The Bengals could always activate Burrow and keep him off of the game day active list if he still needs more time. And I would hope that they're being prudent with this. It sounds like Burrow is still working on figuring out the footwear solution, the technology solution, the supportive structures in the shoe solution to keep that toe healthy, feeling good, and balancing everything that you need to balance coming off of this injury. But it sounds like things went exceedingly well with that rehab. And now we discuss when the target is for him to get back. How much of a difference can he make? And there's a lot of fear out there, Joe. I think those are the three big prongs of the discussion around Joe Burrow's return.
Yeah, and it was a welcome shock for me on Monday. Like, oh, here we go here. Because they're 3-6, and the chances are, whether you use these playoff machines and look at it, the chances are slim that they're going to make a run. But then you remember that it's Joe Burrow, and he's a bit of a psycho. We have said this for a long time. It was part of the reason why when we did shows together daily, Jake, we were like, man, Joe Burrow would be fun to have on this team because that personality could go a long way in affecting everyone around him. And I think there is hope for that. It's part of the reason why he probably got back as quickly as he did, because he's willing to put in that work and risk his injury, risk his body, as we've seen plenty of times over the years, in an effort to win games, in an effort to play football and help his teammates out. So I think we see this and we go, the fear is there because he better be healthy and ready to go. We've seen him play through injuries. We've seen him risk himself far too often. We've seen the organization probably struggle to hold him back and save him from himself numerous times. So that is going to be part of the conversation, part of the fear of, man, I don't care if we're 3-6. I want to see Joe Burrow play on one hand. On the other hand, I do not want to see him get hurt again. It hurts myself. It hurts when you see him get hurt on the field. And we just all want that part to end and be a distant memory and go 5 years without seeing another injury. So you're playing with fire a little bit, but at the same time, I'm in. And the videos, I got to say, that's the other shocking part. With he's running, he's like jumping, he's like stomping his toe into the ground. Like, I'm like, he is a madman. He's throwing the ball. Everything looks great. If you didn't know he was injured, based on what we saw, and it's limited, he's not doing 11 on 11 right now. But if you had no idea, and I showed you the video of him throwing and running around, you would have no clue that this guy tore his big toe off, had to have it surgically reattached, basically. And then now it's way ahead of schedule, is what I want to say there. And it's amazing to me. But, I do have the reservations that everyone else has. Oh, you got it. You're on mute, Jake.
We can take a look at Joe Burrow jumping here as he's getting ready for practice here. This is, I believe, a Jeremy Rao video. We see him running to the sideline. He's been running for a few weeks, apparently. He's been lifting for longer than that, lower body lifting, he said. And the thing that's tricky about this, right, is you can get back into lifting. You can get back into all of these activities that Burrow's doing, right? But where it gets tested is when you have to really explode off of that foot. And I think that's what's starting now. That's what they're testing throughout these practices, is how is it going to respond when I need to, and the jumping is part of that, right? That's controlled. And he's got a steel plate in that shoe, or carbon fiber plate in that shoe, or some sort of supportive structure in that shoe that's preventing the toes from coming all the way back, that's preventing some of the flexion in the toes. And he's trying to find the balance of feeling safe and feeling like he can actually get what he needs to when he needs to push off of that foot, and having the flexion that you need. Because if you're going to explode off of a foot, you need to bend your toes to do that. A lot of the explosion you have when you're pushing off of one leg is coming from specifically your big toe. A lot of power from the toe all the way up your chain of muscles, calf to hamstring to glute in that leg, starts with pushing off of that big toe area of your foot. So that's where that balance is that players have to work through when they're coming back from this injury. At the same time, the fear is I think exacerbated or driven by what we've seen with Brock Purdy, right? And we've seen that he came back, he had a steel plate in his shoe, and he re-injured that thing right away. Now, it sounds like I said, this rehab has gone better than anyone could have expected. The fact that we're talking about him doing these things now instead of a month from now is already shocking. Every single medical expert that you talk to would say that he's ahead of schedule right now. And I think a lot of his injuries have been off-season injuries, right? The calf lingered because it's a muscle thing. And he talked about that a little bit in his presser. I don't know if you noticed that. He's like, yeah, I know how to deal with ligaments, and they're different from muscles. And he feels pretty confident. I mean, this is a different ligament than I think he's dealt with before, but he feels confident in understanding how his body heals from a ligament perspective because he's gone through multiple ligament injuries now.
Yeah.
But that's what you're worried about, is like, well, he did re-injure the calf. And how much would it affect his mobility? Because when he played through the calf, that was bad. That was ugly.
And it led to another injury potentially, right? Because he really couldn't get out of the way there.
Well, and he re-injured it.
Yeah.
In a game. So he had the setback. And the setback here is scary because turf toe is just a scary injury, despite the name, as we discussed many times. So it's really hard to figure out where you should land in the risk of returning Joe Burrow, fear, discussion, like what's the point of putting him back out there? It's reckless, because there are people out there who say Joe Burrow returning this year, period, is reckless. It is malpractice. You are out of this thing. There's no reason for you to put Joe Burrow back on the field. And what that ignores, I hear that argument. What that ignores is, like, we have no idea what is actually happening medically. And it's making a lot of assumptions about what's actually happening medically. If it is a risk, if it is going to lead to a Brock Purdy situation where there's a risk of re-injury, that is, what would the threshold have to be? Like 20%, 30%? If there's a risk of re-injury, you say, not worth it. The
Right.
odds of us doing anything this season are too long. What is that for you, Joe? What would that number have to be?
I think with the playoff chances are higher than the re-injury chances. So, like, if they win this week, it go up to 12 to 14% of making the playoffs by beating the Steelers. Okay, then you beat the Patriots, it gets into the 25% chance. And now we're saying, all right, if you say I've had 12% re-injury, he's way ahead of schedule. We're feeling good about it. Well, then let's go. Let's roll. Because you won 2 games in a row. The division is down. You beat the Steelers. Like, that would be great. You lose the next 2 games and you're at 1%. And the re-injury risk is 5, 8, 10%. It's great. He's in great shape. It ain't worth it. It's not worth it at that point to put him back in there because your chances now of running the table are extremely slim. But this is us saying that. Imagine telling Burrow, you have a chance to run the table because he probably feels he can do that, right? Why wouldn't he? He's a psycho. And if you do, you can make the playoffs because they had a 1% chance at a time last year. And then they rattled off all the wins. And going into that final week, remember, they had like a 46% chance if the Broncos would have beat the Chiefs or whatever it was. There was a few scenarios they could have got into it. So that 1% chance is assuming a lot of things happen the rest of the way. Because you at that point, you'd be 3-8. They're assuming you're not going to win many games. But if you do, and the rest of the division struggles, well, you do have a chance. And it's hard to tell Burrow to not play if he feels like he's got a shot.
That's going to be the challenge for the organization, right? Is how well do we understand the risk of re-injury here, and how does it feel, and how do we really assess? I mean, we've seen that this team is incapable of being brutally honest with themselves.
Yeah.
So
In a lot
they,
of ways.
in so many ways, they probably are disinclined to shut Joe Burrow down, unless it's like he's not ready for the Thanksgiving game and they lose all 3. You get to a losing record, you maybe have an argument to shut him down. If he's not ready to come back until that Bills game and they go 0-3 in the next year, they've won 1 game without Joe Burrow, and that was against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. They obviously get a chance to do that again this week, and they could win some games. Who knows? We don't know, but I wonder if it got to that point, if they would consider it a little bit differently, or maybe they activate him. They say, you know what? Maybe you can play against Arizona.
Right. The final
You
few
know,
weeks.
maybe, but we're really gonna let this thing go out to like 12 weeks. We're gonna be beyond sure. You're gonna be annoyed with us, but we're gonna make sure that you've been feeling good for, and they take that really conservative
Might
approach.
be
Who
a
knows?
good compromise of the 2 sides of saying, we want to protect you, want to make sure you're 1000%. And I'm sure Joe Burrow wants to play and finish the year strong and feel good about where he left this season. That, hey, you can play the final 3.
Yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. On the other hand, like, what is the impact of the Joe Burrow return? This has been a
Right.
hot topic
Mhm.
this week as well, because people look at the results for the Bengals with Joe Flacco. They see, well, they're the number 1 EPA per play offense when Joe Flacco's been starting at quarterback. The running game's working. They're scoring 42, 38, 33 points per game the last 3 weeks against the Steelers, Jets, and Bears. And one of those was a special teams touchdown. But besides the point, they're scoring 40 points a week with Joe Flacco. They're not. They're scoring like
Right.
30, 35
Which
points
is
a
still
week,
great.
which is still great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's what they need to score. They're giving up 33 points per week on the
Yeah.
season. But what is the difference that Joe Burrow makes is like, well, when the defenses aren't the Jets and the Bears and the Steelers really struggling, as people might have remembered around the time the Bengals played, they've made major defensive changes on that side of the ball since the Bengals played them. When it's a good defense, when it's a good team, having Joe Burrow instead of Joe Flacco is going to matter, no doubt about it. Joe Burrow is clearly better than Joe Flacco, and that's where you get a significant difference, I think, is when you're playing against a real defense. And the Patriots would be a great example of this, but I don't think the Patriots game is on the table.
But also, we're looking and comparing Flacco, and I'm talking to everyone here because I think you understand this, Jake, and I think people that have followed us for a long time will feel the same way. But talking to the national media or some of the people that may feel this way, you're comparing Flacco's potentially 4 best games of his career,
Yeah.
his best stretch. One of the 4 best stretches anyone's ever had, one of the 4 best stretches anyone's ever had for first time starting with a team. We've seen those numbers that for sure it's up there. That's not comparable to what we should expect Flacco to be the rest of the way. We should expect some regression. We should expect the offense, and there's been signs of it already, and they've found a way to get through it. Remember, they failed twice at the end of the Jets game on offense. They didn't start so hot versus the Bears and had to come back down 2 scores. So, like, at the end of the day, yeah, everything looks good, but there were their struggles. And home versus away splits, all of this has come at home, other than the second half of the Packers game, which they laid an egg in the first half. They are so much better at home than they are away. And now you're going to go on an away run a little bit here, especially versus the Steelers and then the Ravens and Bills. So the long-term stretch of it is going to be away. But also, if Flacco even goes down a little bit and his play dips a little bit, well, then Burrow, you want Burrow in there to maximize your offense. We know Burrow over the course of his career is significantly better than what Joe Flacco is. So if we get a little bit of regression, which should be expected out of this offense, that's when you want to insert Burrow and maintain or get back to that level of offense where you're scoring 33 points a game. And if you can, that gives you the best chance. And the point I've been trying to hammer home is that each game is different. Each game is a new formula. You can't just look and say they give up 33 a game and you score 32, you lose every single game. That's not how it works, right? The averages is not how it works. You have to still win in the situation you're given every single week. And maybe you plug Burrow into that Jets game. They might win that game at the end. You plug Burrow into the Bears game. Maybe they start a little hotter. There are differences to that. Yes, just the offense. But we've always maintained as well that when you have your franchise quarterback, everyone around them plays better. And the defense sometimes even plays better. I don't know how to explain why it does. Is it belief? Is it you got the guy there? Everyone believes they can do it. Maybe they can play a little more freely. Whatever the case is, this defense doesn't do anything well. We understand that. But even the Ravens were a bottom 3 or 4 defense just a couple weeks ago. Lamar comes back the last 2 weeks. Their defense looks great. I think they're number 2 in EPA per play over the last 2 weeks. You can have these type of rebounds when that quarterback gets back in there. Now the Ravens have more talent. They've had a longer track record of these guys playing better. The point remains, it wouldn't be crazy to see the defense start to marginally improve. And in fact, under Zach Taylor and throughout his tenure, they are one of the worst defenses in the first 9 weeks of the season throughout the time here, even with Lou Anarumo. They have marginally gotten better throughout the season on the defensive side, as the entire team has in the Zach Taylor era. It wouldn't be crazy if they got slightly better. You want to maintain that high-end offense in order to actually turn these into wins.
Doesn't have to be mystical, the defense getting better. We saw last year that Joe Burrow playing didn't matter. They won 9 games. True. And the defense is worse this year. Could it be a little bit better? Sure. Could they have a little bit more complementary football where the offense is maybe putting the defense in slightly more advantageous situations at times? That's part of it. That's part of having a better quarterback leading to better numbers for your defense. You're probably giving the ball back in advantageous field position after going 3 and out less when you have a good quarterback, and you're probably a little bit more consistent on offense. So it's putting your defense in better situations. The Ravens situation when Lamar Jackson returned, as I've been led to believe, is essentially a Kyle Hamilton thing. And the Ravens essentially just saying, Kyle Hamilton, go fix the thing that our problem is.
Have you seen Malachi Stark's grades the last 2 weeks? 90 plus on PFF the last 2 weeks because they figured out their safeties and what they should do, and Starks is hitting it.
He's had interceptions too, and that's a huge factor for PFF single game grades for safeties. If you have an interception, even if you commit 7 other sins, you're gonna have a nice grade. That's PFF for you. But the thing for the Ravens has been, I think, largely driven by Kyle Hamilton, some adjustments they're making on the defensive side of the ball. Malachi Stark settling in is certainly part of it. They have good safety play and not the worst linebacker play in the NFL.
Centered around your elite player, your best player. Yep. The Bengals are potentially missing their best player on defense, and that's probably been a big part of why the defense has stunk the last few weeks as well.
Even worse than it had. Like where you're sinking from, one of the worst defenses in the last 25 years to almost certainly the worst defense in the last 25 years. But you mentioned the home road splits. So let's talk about this real quick. And then I want to circle back to the idea that the Bengals defense just could get better as the season goes on, like we've seen from the offense over the years. But every single split for the Bengals is significantly advantageous when they're at home, when you look at the offense. And this is going back to 2021 through 2025. So this is a multi-year split at this point. They're averaging 380 yards or so at home. I'm rounding a little bit here for effect. They're averaging 70 less yards per game on the road, which is kind of crazy. This isn't consistent for other teams. We looked at the Steelers. The Steelers' home road splits are virtually identical. We looked at the Chiefs. The Chiefs' home road splits, they're actually performing better on the road as an offense. Just for a couple of other examples, we also looked at the Browns defense when we were looking at this just for fun.
Much
And the
better at
Browns
home, by the
defense
way.
is much better at home, as you would expect, getting sacks like 3% more often on dropbacks, giving up way fewer points, all these things. Anyway, point is that not all teams have this stark of a split for their offense. But in terms of yards per play, they go from 5.9 at home to 5.1 on the road, almost a full yard less per play on the road. The rushing average goes down, the rushing yards per game goes down, the passing yards per attempt goes down a full yard from 7.4 to 6.4. The passing yards per game goes from 280 to 226. They throw actually the one positive split is there are more interceptions coming for the Bengals at home on a rate basis, but they get sacked more on the road. They get fewer first downs on the road. They convert 5% less third downs on the road. They possess the ball a minute and a half less on the road. They score 5 less points on the road than at home.
That's 5 years, 5 seasons.
21, 22, 23, 24, 25. I can count.
Yeah,
5 years. Good math, Joe. That's crazy, man. That's a terrible split. You can't have that. You play at least half your games on the road every year. And I know they've not had the worst road records. Like, it's not like they're going 9-0 at home and 0-8 on the road, but
they went undefeated at home in 21, or was it 22?
they've done it. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was going to say, and now, hearing these numbers, that makes sense if they are significantly better. I mean, that would make them one of the very best offenses in the league, just looking at the home numbers. And so that's a challenge they're going to have to overcome this week against the Steelers.
Got to overcome challenges. That's the nature of this season. It's a terrible split. They have to find ways. I mean, they are who they are, I think, at this point. Like, how many times can you say this came up for me this week? How many times can you say, like, the defense has got to come out with his hair on fire and just play more physical, play better? Like, yeah, if they do it, sure, maybe I'll start to believe that they can play better. But they haven't shown us they can do it, and this is multiple years. And I changed that year range just for fun to see if it had gotten better recently or worse recently. It hasn't. It's pretty consistent year by year for the Bengals. The home road splits. It varies a little bit, but they're consistently a better offense at home than the road. And this is a team that leans on its offense so hard, especially this year. I mean, the Steelers came into this game. This is a Matt Williamson stat. Matt Williamson, who covers the Steelers, in the last 3 games, Pittsburgh is converting 15% of their third down attempts. And on the season, they're the 7th worst in the NFL at a 36% third down conversion rate. Guess what they converted against the Bengals, Joe?
I know it is. Tell the people.
A few weeks ago. 70%. 7 of 10. That's double.
That's gross.
Double. That's crazy.
50% is the extreme for bad. Like, the worst teams in the league are at 49 to 50%.
That's the Bengals and the
That's
Cowboys.
Where the Bengals are.
But the Bengals.
And they give up 70 versus the Steelers.
And they haven't been much. Actually, maybe this is worse. What do you think they've given up on third downs? It's actually not the worst in the NFL. There are a few teams worse than them on fourth downs in the NFL.
Oh, on fourth? See, because I was thinking this recently when the Bears converted a couple fourths. I'm like, you know what? If you don't get it on third against this defense, you've got a great shot. Give me 2 shots of converting on third and fourth down. You're going to convert. So, like, that's bad. You don't want to be. That's why third down defense is so crucial. Third down offensive defense can win games. I'm going to assume they're at the 50% range.
67%. 8
Oh my
of 12.
gosh.
There are like 16, 17 worse than them. Tennessee's giving it up 83% of the time, 10 of 12. Tennessee's much better on third downs. They're 41% instead of 49% on third downs, but really giving it up on fourth downs. The Raiders, 9 of 11 fourth downs allowed to be converted. The Steelers, way up here. 18 of 24, and teams have gone for it against the Steelers. I think second most in the entire
Are you saying
NFL.
24 times they've gone against this, teams have gone for fourth down against Steelers?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Only
That's
one
3
team.
times a game almost.
Only one team more is the Rams, where teams have gone for it against the Rams 28 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So how about that? But
Great
the
goal.
Steelers worse on fourth downs, but also 41% on third downs. The Vikings, who are 35% on third downs, one of the best third down defenses in the NFL, giving it up 72% of the time on fourth down. So there's a little bit of noise there.
Hmm.
But the Bengals defense this week, what do you think? Worse or better than 60% third down conversion rate for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Make your bet in the comments. Over, under. It was 70% last time for the season. They're right around 49 and some change. Do the Steelers convert more than 60% of their third down opportunities? I want to believe they're going to win. I'm going to say under. The Steelers have been pretty poor on offense lately. You hope that you can. The Steelers may have made a lot of changes on defense to actually cover the Bengals this time. I'm hoping we can say the same about the Bengals defense and stopping the Steelers maybe 5 times in this game could get you the win.
How do you get stops, Joe? Where are they coming from? That's a good over-under. Yeah, missed throws. Aaron Rodgers throwing it up to 2 different Bengals defenders. That would work. But yeah, I mean, we're setting it at 60% for a team that's been 15% in their last 3 games, is 36% on the season, and it's just because the Bengals have been so bad. To be fair, we looked the last few games. The Bengals have been around. I mean, this isn't good, but they've been closer to 50%. They've been under 50% a couple of times in the last handful of games since the Steelers game. But yeah, pretty bad. Antoine Powell-Ryland, a big addition this week, Joe. We talked about that being the big addition, and the Bengals desperate for pass rushing help because Trey Hendrickson is doubtful to play. And
that's the big
that
one.
continues to linger. Shamar Stewart is doubtful to play. So from a strictly you need snaps perspective, we're maybe looking at Isaiah Foskey being up this week, because I don't know if Powell-Ryland can get ready to play in a single week, but maybe he should. I mean, this was a guy that had great pass rush data. We're going to take a look at some of
let it play what we're talking
college tape here while we talk about him, because this is a guy that I went back and looked at the sheet, was seen as, what was it, like 46?
46 on our draft spreadsheet. Yeah.
And
he's a smaller, stockier guy. He's about 258 at 6'2". He's got short arms. These guys tend to get drafted a little bit later. But this is a guy with great athleticism and production. I mean, his production blows away Shamar Stewart, which is only brought up because Shamar was one of the worst first-round production guys we've ever seen drafted.
Especially as a pass rusher.
Yeah, as a pass rusher especially. Powell-Ryland had a ton of moves. You're going to see him win in a variety of ways. You're going to see him win with balance and athleticism, turning the corner or changing direction. The spin move back inside is really impressive. He's not great against the run. The size limits him there, obviously. But the Bengals, I find interesting. They're listing him as a linebacker, right? Mm-hmm. Probably because of the size. They've done this before. When they drafted Carl Lawson, they also called him a linebacker. I remember that, to peel back the last time they drafted a good pass rusher. But yeah, the chance that Powell-Ryland can help you, I think, is more than significant. I think there's a chance this could actually be a guy, because they've had issues at linebacker and depth at linebacker. They traded away Logan Wilson, and because they need someone to play this edge position that they keep kicking down Demetrius Knight into, that is not working. So maybe they can develop Powell-Ryland into that. Maybe they've seen over the self-scouting on bye week and said, you know what, we should probably try to get somebody that actually fits that mold. And there's Powell-Ryland getting waived. Let's, jump on somebody like this. And also at the same time, the pass rush is still a major, major issue. So there's a lot of questions about getting him ready. When can he be ready? He was already cut. He was a 6th-round pick, right? So I don't want to put too much on this guy. But yeah, the spreadsheet really liked him for a chance of a guy being at least a contributor in the NFL.
And I know this is college film that we're watching here, and these are college players. This is not NFL offense. This is not NFL caliber players necessarily, but it sure does look like something the Bengals don't have on their team. Yeah. When you're looking at the way that he attacks as a pass rusher, the variety of moves that he has, that he's showing off here, and the agility, like he might be the loosest hipped edge rusher on the Bengals already. I think he probably is, just from the clips that we're seeing here. The problem, I don't want to nitpick him. I'm excited about what he could potentially do for you as a situational pass rusher. I think that's what he should be. If they try to put him in that Demetrius Knight role, he's going to have the same problems against the run, I think, that Demetrius Knight does, or very similar. Maybe it's a little bit better, but this is a guy that you're bringing in for a potential shot in the arm for your pass rush.
We got to
I
play
think
here at
that's
the end against the Bengals too, which is these are 2 from preseason as well. So you do get some NFL type.
oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, the last couple here. He had a couple pressures in that final game against the Jets, and then this is one against the Bengals. Nice little dip inside move here.
And that's why the Bengals signed him.
That's all it takes.
That's all you need is one play against the Bengals. So this is going to be a week that we're going to see a lot of Joseph Osai, a lot of Miles Murphy, a lot of Cedric Johnson, who I think people are excited about, and we'll see what
Very
he can
excited.
do.
He does have
And
3 pressures according to PFF on 12 pass rush snaps. That is pretty good. I went back and looked. I think 2 of them were unblocked, so anyone could have made those plays. But being an athlete after being unblocked is a requirement. Knowing where the ball is a requirement, and something that not all these defensive ends on the team have. So, I don't want to give him too much credit, but at the same time, you do have to make the plays that are there for you.
he was second among Bengals with significant pass rush snaps against the Bears in pass rush win rate.
Yep.
9.1% win rate overall in a game where Joseph Osai was at 18%. Osai mostly rushing over that terrible Benedict. What was his name? Benedict, the left tackle for the Chicago Bears. Miles Murphy, though, in that game, 7.4%. Shamar Stewart, 3.8%. So, it was better than those guys in his one game of action. So we'll see what the opportunity is for Cedric Johnson this week. He only had 12 pass rushes in that game, so it's not like he was out there a ton. And it'll be interesting to also see how he is used, because he's playing exclusively outside of the tackle in that game against the Bears, essentially. So do they move him around some by necessity? Because Shamar Stewart was a guy they were putting inside quite a bit.
Yeah.
Joseph Osai probably will be a guy they put inside. Do we know Cam Sample status? Do you recall? I'll try to find an injury report here.
I was going to say Sample's been the guy that would be the 4th defensive end, and that's, or maybe he's the 3rd. He's still over Cedric Johnson, but maybe we'll actually get Cam Sample to kick inside, and maybe he's the guy that, because we've asked for that for years, and we've got sparingly a handful of snaps of it. I would like to see it a little bit more.
Sample not listed on the injury report for the Bengals on Wednesday coming out of the bye week. So whatever was ailing him, because he was injured, must no longer be ailing him. I don't know how much of an impact you should expect to get from Cam Sample at this point. I was glad
We're
they brought
scraping the bottom of
Sample.
the barrel here, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I was glad they brought Sample back because I thought he was a good run defender, like a Sam Hubbard light, but the ability to play competent edge in the run game was there. The motor was there. I think the injury has sapped him a little bit. He had a 0% pass rush win rate against the Bears with 11 reps. So,
yep.
These are the guys that the Bengals have available to them this week. And we'll see if Isaiah Foskey is added to the mix. Meanwhile, I think this is a game where, again, like, do you have the benefit of Aaron Rodgers giving you the ball twice, or DJ Turner taking it once and Aaron Rodgers giving you the ball once? Rodgers, they're worried in Pittsburgh right now that he's following a Russell Wilson arc and is just too old to do it for an entire season. And
another point about Flacco as well. How long can we expect these 40-year-old guys? They may have these peaks, but the valleys do come for them. It's hard for them to make it through a full season.
And Flacco, unfortunately, has the history of starting out okay with some of the teams that he's been journeying to, and then not necessarily finishing or maintaining that level of play. But that concern is there with Rodgers, especially after last week, especially after the way they played against the Chargers. But I mean, like I said, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe that the Bengals can stop Jalen Warren in the Steelers' run game when I see it. I'll believe that they can cover both DK Metcalf and literally anyone else on the field, especially Pat Freiermuth, at the same time when I see it. And we'll see what kind of adjustments are there for the defense. But when Al Golden has been asked about adjustments, about changing things, he's like, I can't make it any simpler. And so it really makes you like, what are we going to sit here and say? Like, these are the things that the defense is going to change coming out of the bye. When the defensive coordinator is like, yeah, man, I don't know what I can do here.
Is that more damning on Golden or the players? Because, like, if Golden's like, I'm out of options, like, that doesn't look good either.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that Golden's out there calling anything brilliant. I think that the play calling at times could certainly be suspect. I think the installation of the stunts and the execution of the stunts and the way that they're trying to run the stunts is still something that doesn't look great, where maybe there's been some mild improvement. But with the level of play you're getting out of your defensive front and your linebackers and your safeties, it's just so up and down with the safeties. I mean, it makes it hard to believe in anything on defense. So we're back to the point of like, can Joe Flacco go toe to toe with Aaron Rodgers? Play mistake-free football on the road, because I don't know if you can rely on Rodgers giving you the ball again. He hasn't been great in terms of ball security lately. He was bad against the Chargers in that aspect, but Bengals aren't getting after the passer.
No.
The Steelers have been getting after the passer the last couple of weeks. 10 sacks in their last 2 games, 5 sacks a game. And there's still problems on the Steelers defense, but they have restructured their defense because of what the Bengals did to them a few weeks ago. They're no longer playing as much man. Jalen Ramsey's playing free safety now. They cut Juan Thornhill. They traded for Kyle Duggar. They signed Asante Samuel. They're getting a little bit better play out of their defensive front because those guys have been healthier. Nick Herbig, a
Keanu
bigger
Benton
part of
looks
that
great.
defense than he was before. They still have huge problems at linebacker, just like the Bengals do. But I thought this would be a tough test for the Bengals the last time they played. The big reason the Bengals were able to be so successful in that game is they're able to run the ball. And if the Steelers want to sit there and bracket and cloud and double T. Higgins and Jamar Chase the whole game, they better be able to run the ball. And if Chase Brown's able to run the ball, Samaje Perine not practicing, I think that's a big blow. If they're able to run the ball again against the Steelers, then you have a little bit of confidence this offense can go toe to toe, because there's a formula out there right now to slow down this offense with Joe Flacco, and it's double and make someone else beat you.
Yeah, we've seen that over the last couple of weeks as well, especially on money downs, third downs, late fourth downs, end of the game scenarios. I expect the Steelers probably lean on it a little bit more. They did not double a ton in that first game, and there was a criticism of Mike Tomlin afterwards I saw from a lot of fans and media, like, why not double Chase at some point? And yeah, so we probably won't see Jalen Ramsey on him one-on-one. It'll probably be Ramsey at safety plus a corner, and they're going to say, all right, we're not letting Jamar beat us the way he did last time. But to be honest with you, I think Tomlin's tried to say we're not going to let Jamar beat us multiple times, and the Bengals have had a lot of success. Zach Taylor's had a lot of success. Last game was the first time they've really been able to run the ball against this Pittsburgh front. I would, if I'm the Steelers, I'm going to bet that they can't do it again. I'm going to bet that we can hold up front and we can double their big-time weapons and we can shut them down, because they've had success doing that when the Bengals can't get into the run game, can't get the explosive runs. That was the big thing from that Thursday night game, is the explosive run rate was crazy. They're ripping off runs nonstop. And you can do whatever you want on offense if you're running the ball like that. And no Samaje Perine this time, an opportunity for Taj Brooks. I'm excited to see him. I'm excited if the run game is still good, and it's been good for the Bengals this year. If it is still, I want to see Brooks inserted into that and see if he can provide what Perine has. And, he looks like he's got that type of power and that bulk and density to maybe move a pile a little bit. So does he have the speed, and does he have the mental processing as quick as Perine does? I don't know. So we'll find out.
Does he have the dad strength? Is Perine a dad? I don't know. He's old enough
He's
to be a
gotta
dad for
be.
sure. That dude is crazy strong. What he's doing, man, Samaje Perine, underappreciated Cincinnati Bengal. I was disappointed when he left. I don't think we saw eye to eye on that one at the time. Glad to
I
see
agree.
he's
Yeah.
still here producing at a high level at 30 at running back. I mean, he's doing pretty crazy things for a running back his age who's been a
He
journeyman.
looks as
in the
good as he's
NFL.
ever has.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Going to be a different offensive line configuration this time out for the Bengals. And Dalton
call.
Risner was fantastic in that week 7 game against the Steelers, was one of their better run blockers that week. And now
One of his best run blocking games he's had in a long time.
Maybe in the NFL. Ted Karras started to come alive that week. He's been much better since then. Orlando Brown really struggled that week. And Amarius Mims had his, hands full with TJ Watt. That will be a recurring issue. But Ted Karras coming alive, I think, big deal for this run game and has really helped. And we'll see if Dylan Fairchild can put it together in back-to-back weeks. Obviously, a much tougher challenge to deal with Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, and the rookie Derek Harmon than it was to deal with like Andrew Billings, who's a solid player. He's fine. And, the
Gervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett.
The husk of Grady Jarrett, and Gervon Dexter is good, or solid at least. But Cam Hayward's still playing like the best defensive tackle in the NFL. Speaking of ageless wonders, and that's a tougher test. And so, can they put together some running success? Because that's really what it's been. In 2 out of the last 3 games the Bengals have played, against the Jets and against the Steelers, the reason the offense has been so successful is the run game. Flacco's been good, don't get me wrong, and against the Bears, he did a lot more heavy lifting. They found, I mean, the Bears just couldn't cover those dudes for the
Yeah.
Bengals. 20+ yard receptions, like we said in the postgame show, for 7 different receivers. In those other games, it's been complementary football. The run game has been one of the most efficient in the NFL. They didn't get that production against the Bears. And if that disappears again, if we're back to the first 6 weeks of the season in the run game all of a sudden, then the wheels could come off for this offense. And in a situation where you're still leaning on the offense because you don't, I mean, again, until the defense shows us they can do anything, can't believe in the defense, you can't have the wheels come off. And so again, we're
You
back
can't
to the
even have
run
a
game.
flat tire. You have
Yeah.
no margin for error on offense.
So the run game becomes so paramount, despite all the conversation is going to be Chase, Higgins, Flacco, corners, pass rush. And I think that's all important. But if you can't run the ball, all that stuff gets way harder. And it just plays into what the Steelers' game plan should be, which is get brackets, get doubles on the outside, get clouds on the outside on Jamar and T, which challenges the Bengals to move those guys around and find the matchups, but make someone else beat you. Make Andre Yosevich beat us, make Noah Fant beat us, make them use Chase Brown, make them target Chase Brown 14 times again in the passing game, make Chase Brown catch the ball because he's dropped the ball in a couple critical spots. But if you can run the ball, then you can really punish all of that approach from the Steelers.
They can't double if you run it. You just don't have enough guys.
Or if you do, you're giving up 15-yard runs. And you're like,
Right.
okay, fine. Yep. We're not beating you with Jamar and T. We're beating you with Chase. And we're beating you with somebody else.
I'm big Chase Brown this week. If you're talking fantasy, if you're doing daily fantasy and you're picking, man, like when the Bengals haven't had a backup, when Zach Moss went down, when Samaje Perine's left games, they have leaned on Chase Brown 98% of the snaps and just said, you are a workhorse. You're getting everything. You're getting the targets this week. You're getting the carries. I expect that again. And I that's worth the chance that the Steelers defense, because I thought the Steelers defense was much better in that Colts game, shutting down probably the best, most efficient offense in the league this year. And Jonathan Taylor might be MVP. They did a great job that week. This past week against the Chargers, other than the pass rush getting to and beating, that Chargers really beat up the offensive line right now. They gave up big runs to Kamani Vidal. And I think we should be looking at a similar thing this week. You got to be able to run the ball. If they can't, if it's early, if we're in the second quarter, like, man, Bengals haven't been able to run the ball, probably not a good sign for how that game's going to go.
Yeah, if you can't run the ball, when the Steelers, and we're assuming maybe the Steelers go out there and they don't double these guys. Maybe they just go play a bunch of spot drop zones and say,
we're going to defend the run.
We're gonna keep it in front of us. We're gonna play a bunch of cover 2, and we're gonna make, and we've seen the Bengals beat this, obviously. And I think Joe Flacco has answers for cover 2, but it's like, we're gonna play cover 2, and we're gonna disguise it a little bit. And we're gonna rotate into some middle field close stuff. We're gonna play some Tampa. We're gonna make the ball go underneath. We're going to make the ball go to the checkdowns, and we're just going to tackle. The Steelers tackled terribly.
Yeah.
Against the Bengals. The first
more missed tackles than the Bengals did, right?
Yeah.
I remember.
It's wild. And that was the first of a couple of games. And I think since then it's been a little bit better. I was talking to Chris Carter, who covers the Steelers, about this, and it was really bad against the Packers. The last 2 weeks has been a little bit better. It looks like still not good. But the big difference for the Steelers the last couple of weeks is they're getting after the passer way better. And as a result, it's allowing the coverage to play up. They're not asking guys to hold up in man coverage so much. I think whatever they're doing in the back end is facilitating the pass rush. Those things are synergizing a little bit better. And so that's what you have to deal with this week. If you're the Bengals, is getting rid of the ball quickly, protecting well enough for Flacco to get rid of it. Because you go back and watch the tape, there's plenty of times that the offensive line gave it up in protection, but ball's out against the Steelers the first time around because Flacco's getting rid of the ball so quickly. And we'll see what those adjustments look like, because despite all the splits and all the trends and everything we're talking about here, if the Bengals are going to have any hope to make Joe Burrow's return matter, to make it mean something, they've already probably squandered most of that opportunity, losing their last 2 games with the Jets and the Bears, games that they really should have or could have won. They got to get this one. And if they don't get this one, we're already leaning into evaluation mode pretty hard here. Not so much today, but in general this season. If they don't get this one, it skews even farther that way, because the Patriots at 8-2 are not looking like a very fun opponent the following week there. So big game for the Bengals for this thing to have any meaning left this season. Is that your feeling too, Joe?
I feel like we're going to say it's the biggest game on the schedule or the biggest game of the year every week
Yeah.
because we did this last year and it was that way. And it was fun. I know they didn't make the playoffs last year, but it was a good time seeing them win those games at the end and really climb from 1% chance to a near 50% chance at the end. And are we looking at that again? This is the most winnable of the tough stretch until you get to those final 3 weeks, which may not matter if you don't win any or maybe 2 of these games, but this is probably the most winnable of the grouping. You got to do it. It's still the Steelers. It's still tough. I wish it was the Dolphins, Browns, Cardinals right now, right? I would feel so much better about their chances and what could potentially play out, but it's not that way. You get the tough schedule now, and you got to get through it.
Well, they just had, the little break.
The Jets and Bears, and they couldn't handle it. Yeah, fair.
It's so much like last year, Joe. It's so much.
Because if they would have won one of those games, or both, as they should have probably, we'd feel amazing. The whole tone would be completely different.
Yeah, and they'd be sitting here 4-5, and we'd be talking about, Joe's going to be back in a couple of weeks, and they got that stop against the Jets when they needed it at the end of the game, or they, they snuck that one out against the Bears, and
if they were 5-4 and they're playing in this division, it would be like mission accomplished. You've done what you were supposed to do while Joe was out.
Yep. And they lost by 1 and on a walk-off touchdown against the Bears. Not quite
embarrassingly,
walk-off, but just not enough resistance. And the defense is what it is. We'll see if they can start to prove us wrong. We want nothing more than to be proven wrong about this defense the rest of the way. For some of these young guys to figure it out as pass rushers, for these linebackers to play. What's the bar for the linebacker play, Joe? What are we hoping for?
I want them to keep their head above water because they are drowning. They are reaching up for help right now. Someone's got to pull them up.
Play more physical on the defensive side of the ball. We take some of that.
I would take that. If you could say, all right, give me one thing that this defense does better the rest of the year without really setting too high expectations. Like, I don't expect them to be a great pass rush team with the collection of players they have, but could they be physical? Could they hit? Could they flow to the ball and play harder with the guys they have? Yes. The only guy probably not is Geno Stone. Everyone else should be running to the goddamn ball and making a play.
See ball, get ball?
See ball, get ball.
Don't go under blocks. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about physicality, is like you're taking yourself out of plays because you don't want to take on a block, or because you can't defeat a block, or you can't get off a block. You're ending up on the ground.
As Marshawn Lynch would say, run through an MFer's face.
Yep. That's all we want.
That's it.
Is that so much to ask? Make sure you're back with us for the post-game show for a chance to win that Apple Watch, here presented by First Star Logistics. A Jake and Joe Bengals post-game show coming your way after this game on Sunday. And of course, we're taking a look every week at the biggest Bengals stories and the matchups of the week on the Jake and Joe Bengals preview show that is up on Friday mornings. And you can make sure you're getting all of your required viewing. Make sure you're up to date on all things about the Cincinnati Bengals heading into the game weeks, and got those great giveaways. Like I mentioned, make sure you're following at First Star Log on Twitter for all the details about those giveaways. And if you're looking for work in the Cincinnati area, Joe and I have had a great working relationship with First Star Logistics, and they've got job postings. Check them all out at firststarlogistics.com, one of the fastest growing companies, probably also one of the fastest companies in the Cincinnati
no doubt
area. Yeah, on average, of course. I think they got that athleticism down. So check all that out at firststarlogistics.com for those job postings. And we'll see you after the game here on the First Star Logistics YouTube channel, where we'll recap the game and we have those Apple Watches to give away. So make sure you're with us then. Until then, thanks for watching this episode of the Jake and Joe Bengals preview show presented by First Star Logistics. We'll see you on Sunday.